No one extended a hand to the Japanese billionaire, until the black waitress greeted him in flawless Japanese. What if kindness spoke in the most unexpected tongue? Hiroshi Tanaka sat alone, tucked away in the corner booth of Murphy's Diner, his impeccably tailored suit a stark contrast to the well-worn vinyl seats and mismatched, chipped coffee cups. For 3 weeks, he'd made this his morning ritual, arriving at the same time each day, ordering the same black coffee, and leaving a tip that far exceeded the norm. Yet, beyond the perfunctory service, he remained invisible. The other patrons would whisper, casting furtive glances his way, some driven by mere curiosity, others harboring thinly veiled suspicion. He understood more English than he let on, piecing together snippets of conversations about that foreign businessman, and speculation as to why someone of his apparent stature would choose such an unassuming place as Murphy's. His phone vibrated incessantly, a constant barrage of urgent messages from Tokyo. But Hiroshi remained unmoved, his attention fixed elsewhere. He had lost something precious in this quiet American town, a void that demanded to be filled before he could return to his life. Where are you watching from tonight? Hiroshi's morning pilgrimage to Murphy's had become a near-sacred routine, though he struggled to articulate the reason to the impatient executives who called him daily. Back in Japan, he commanded sprawling boardrooms, his decisions shaping the lives of thousands of employees within his vast technology empire. But here, in the unassuming town of Millfield, Ohio, he was just another customer, a stranger most seemed content to ignore. The diner buzzed with its usual cast of characters. Factory workers fueling up with hearty breakfasts before their shifts, elderly couples sharing quiet moments over stacks of pancakes, and long-haul truck drivers fortifying themselves for the open road. Everyone seemed to belong except for him. 3 weeks prior, his daughter, Yuki, had been driving through Millfield when her car sputtered and died. Stranded and frightened, she'd called him, her voice laced with panic, describing in rapid Japanese the unexpected kindness of strangers who had helped her find shelter for the night. "The people here have such warm hearts, Papa," she'd said, her voice filled with wonder. "Especially one lady who didn't speak any Japanese, but somehow made me feel safe." 2 days later, Yuki was gone, killed in a tragic car accident a mere 50 miles from Millfield. Hiroshi had immediately flown from Tokyo to Ohio, but instead of making arrangements and returning home, he checked into a small, local inn and began his daily visits to Murphy's Diner, desperately searching for something he couldn't quite define. The waitresses rotated shifts, each offering polite but detached service. There was Patricia, a grandmotherly woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, whose movements were slow but deliberate. Then there was Janet, efficient and professional, but visibly uncomfortable with customers who didn't fit the mold of her neighbors. The morning crowd moved with its own rhythm, a familiar dance of small-town life, and Hiroshi remained outside of it, nursing his coffee and observing the world around him. He'd attempted a few tentative conversations in English, but they quickly fizzled, leaving him feeling even more isolated. His phone buzzed again. "Tanaka-san, the board meeting cannot be postponed any longer," his assistant pleaded from across the globe. "The merger requires your signature, your presence." Hiroshi glanced around the diner, taking in the peeling paint, the aroma of frying bacon, and the murmur of familiar conversations, and wondered what his daughter had seen here that he was missing. The factory workers bantered loudly at the counter, their voices filled with the easy camaraderie of lifelong friends. An elderly man meticulously read his newspaper while his wife patiently worked on a crossword puzzle, occasionally seeking his help with a particularly challenging clue. This was the America that Yuki had loved, the simple kindness she had experienced in her final days. But Hiroshi remained on the periphery, his expensive clothes and foreign features marking him as an outsider in a town where different often equated to unwelcome. He had risen from humble beginnings in post-war Japan, building his fortune from the ground up. But money was useless now, incapable of buying him what he so desperately craved. He needed to understand what his daughter had felt in this place, to somehow connect with the warmth she had described. The coffee grew cold in his hands as he watched the morning shift change. A new waitress emerged from the kitchen, her dark skin a striking contrast to the pristine white uniform, her movements fluid and graceful. She glanced in his direction, and something in her expression seemed different from the others. Hiroshi felt a sudden flicker of hope, an inexplicable surge of anticipation. Kesha Washington had been a fixture at Murphy's Diner for 6 years, ever since relocating to Millfield to care for her ailing grandmother. She'd noticed the Japanese businessman from her very first day back after her grandmother's passing. Something about his demeanor resonated with her, the way he sat ramrod straight, his hands folded precisely around his coffee cup, his eyes scanning the room with a mixture of hope and quiet resignation that she knew all too well. Growing up in Detroit, Kesha had been a solitary black student in her advanced Japanese classes. While her peers questioned her seemingly odd choice, she had fallen deeply in love with the language, captivated by its precision and the ingrained respect woven into every phrase. Her teacher, Mrs. Yamamoto, had become a mentor, a second mother who taught her not just grammar and vocabulary, but the cultural nuances that transformed Japanese from mere words into a bridge between hearts. Language is a bridge, Mrs. Yamamoto had always said. It connects hearts, not just minds. Now, observing this solitary man day after day, Kesha felt that lesson calling to her. She'd overheard the hushed conversations, the unspoken discomfort surrounding his presence, the uncertainty about this wealthy outsider choosing their humble diner. Some whispered about a corporate takeover. Others simply distrusted what they couldn't understand. The other waitresses, polite but detached, treated him as a puzzle they had no desire to solve. During her break, Kesha had discreetly Googled his name after spotting it on a credit card receipt. Hiroshi Tanaka, CEO of Tanaka Technologies, a man worth more than some small countries. But the search results also revealed a profound tragedy, the recent death of his daughter in a car accident right here in Ohio. Suddenly, his presence at the diner made perfect sense. He wasn't here for business or mere curiosity. He was here for the same reason she'd spent months in her grandmother's silent house, trying to recapture the presence of someone she had lost. This morning felt different. Kesha watched him check his phone repeatedly, saw the tension etched in his shoulders as he ignored call after call. His coffee sat untouched, growing cold as he gazed out the window at the parking lot, where his daughter might have stood just weeks ago. Patricia was managing his section, but she was overwhelmed by the breakfast rush, struggling to keep up with the demands of the truckers and the usual banter of the factory workers. Without conscious thought, Kesha found herself walking towards his table. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of what she was about to do. She'd practiced Japanese conversations for years, but this felt different, far more significant than any classroom exercise. As she reached his booth, she took a deep breath and allowed the words she'd learned so long ago to carry the respect and compassion she felt. Ohayo gozaimasu. Shinshi kohi o tsuchimasu ka? Ohayo gozaimasu. Atarashi kohi o omochi shimashu ka? Good morning. May I bring you fresh coffee? The effect was immediate and profound. Hiroshi's head snapped up, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and desperate relief. For a moment, he was speechless, simply staring at this young woman who had just offered him fresh coffee in perfect, respectful Japanese. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. Sometimes the most unexpected connections happen when we least expect them, but need them most. Hiroshi's response would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire town, watching from nearby tables. Hi, arigatou gozaimasu. Hi, arigatou gozaimasu, Hiroshi whispered, his voice thick with emotion, catching on the simple words of gratitude. He had heard his native language spoken by non-Japanese people before, usually in stilted, textbook phrases that showed effort but lacked true understanding. But Kesha's Japanese carried something deeper, a respect and warmth that resonated within him. Kesha returned moments later with a fresh pot of coffee. The other customers openly stared at their interaction. She poured carefully, then surprised him again by sitting down across from him without invitation. Nangshan no koto kara ohoyami-san sangemasu. Musum-san no koto, kokoro kara okuyami mashigemasu, she said softly. Your daughter, I am very sorry for your loss. The words struck Hiroshi like a physical blow. No one in this town had mentioned Yuki. Not the police officers who had handled the accident report. Not the funeral director who had been professionally kind but distant. Not the desk clerk at the inn who checked him in each week. But this waitress, this stranger, had somehow known and cared enough to offer condolences in his own language. "How do you?" He began in English, then switched back to Japanese, the language feeling safer somehow. "How do you know about my daughter?" "I lost my grandmother recently," Kesha replied, remaining in Japanese but incorporating English words when her vocabulary fell short. "I recognized the look of someone trying to find pieces of someone they love. Your daughter was here." Hiroshi nodded, pulling out his phone to show her a picture of Yuki. A young woman with her father's serious eyes, but a radiant smile that could light up any room. "She called me from this town," he said. "Said the people here were kind to her when her car broke down. She was happy here for those 2 days." Kesha studied the photo, then looked around the diner with new eyes. "Mrs. Patterson at the gas station mentioned a young Japanese lady a few weeks back," she said. "Said she was sweet as pie. Tried to help in the kitchen, even though they couldn't really talk to each other." "That was my daughter?" Hiroshi asked, his voice barely a whisper. Kesha finished gently. "She said someone here made her feel safe. I came to find, to understand, to feel close to her. I understand. After my grandmother passed, I kept coming to church even though I'd stopped believing, just because she felt present there." Around them, the diner had fallen silent. Patricia lingered nearby, pretending to wipe down tables, but clearly listening. Even Jake, the gruff cook, had poked his head out of the kitchen window. The factory workers at the counter had stopped their usual joking to watch this unfolding exchange. Hiroshi felt something crack open in his chest. 3 weeks of carefully controlled grief threatening to spill over. In boardrooms across 3 continents, he was known for his composure, his ability to make rational decisions under pressure. But sitting across from this young woman who spoke his language and understood his pain, he felt 17 again, afraid, uncertain, and desperately alone. "I don't know how to say goodbye to her," he admitted, the words coming out in a mixture of Japanese and broken English. "I don't know how to leave this place. Have you ever faced something like this? Feeling lost and needing to find connection in unexpected places? Let us know in the comments." Kesha's response would not only help Hiroshi find what he was searching for, but also show an entire community what it truly meant to welcome a stranger in their time of need. Kesha reached across the table and gently touched Hiroshi's hand, a gesture that would have been unthinkable in the formal business world he inhabited, but felt perfectly natural here. "You don't have to say goodbye," she said softly in Japanese. "You carry her with you always, but maybe you can say hello to the people who cared for her." She stood up and walked to the counter, addressing the room in clear English. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Mr. Tanaka. 3 weeks ago, his daughter, Yuki, was stranded here when her car broke down. She called him from this very diner, told him how kind and welcoming all of you were to her. 2 days later, she died in an accident on the highway. He's been coming here every morning since, trying to understand what she felt here, trying to feel close to her." The room fell completely silent except for the sizzle of bacon on the grill. Patricia set down her coffee pot and walked over to Hiroshi's table. "Honey," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You're talking about that sweet girl with the bright smile. She helped me carry plates when I was running behind. Couldn't understand a word I said, but just jumped right in like family." Jake wiped his hands on his apron and emerged from behind the grill for the first time anyone could remember. "That little lady tried to teach me how to fold napkins the fancy way," he said, kept pointing at the corners and saying, "Origami, origami," until I got it right. His gruff voice cracked slightly. Real sweetheart. One by one, the other customers began sharing their memories. The truck driver at the end of the counter recalled how Yuki had drawn pictures of his children when he'd shown her wallet photos. The elderly couple remembered how she'd helped the woman with her crossword puzzle, somehow communicating the answers through gestures and drawings. Even the factory workers, tough men who rarely spoke to outsiders, admitted they'd been charmed by her attempts to learn their names in English. "She drew us a picture," said one of them, pulling out his wallet. "Look here. She drew all of us standing together. Wrote, 'Thank you' in English and something in Japanese underneath." He handed the worn paper to Hiroshi. Hiroshi looked at his daughter's careful handwriting. In Japanese, she'd written, "These people have hearts like yours, Papa. They show love through action, not words." His hands trembled as he read her observation about these strangers who had become her temporary family. "She saw who you really are," Hiroshi said to the room, switching between Japanese and English, as Kesha quietly translated. "In Tokyo, in my world, kindness is complicated. But she found here what I've spent my whole life building companies to create. Community, family." The diner erupted in movement as people began gathering around Hiroshi's table, sharing more stories, showing pictures, and offering the connection he had been desperately seeking. Patricia brought him fresh coffee without being asked. Jake insisted he try the apple pie Yuki had loved. The elderly woman asked him to help with her crossword, just as Yuki had done. If you've been enjoying this story and feeling moved by this community's kindness, please subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales like this one. Because sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we never expected to find. 3 months later, Hiroshi stood in the completely renovated Murphy's Diner, watching Kesha train the new staff on the customer service standards that would make the restaurant worthy of the Tanaka name. Not because he'd bought it as a business investment, but because this community deserved a gathering place as beautiful as the hearts of the people who called it home. The worn vinyl booths had been replaced with comfortable seating, the kitchen updated with modern equipment, and the walls now displayed dozens of photos capturing the daily life and laughter of Millfield's residents. Tanaka-san called Patricia, who now served as the diner's community coordinator, a role Hiroshi had created specifically for her. "The mayor's here with the city council. They're ready for your presentation about the scholarship program." The Yuki Tanaka Memorial Scholarship would send one local student each year to study in Japan, while a sister program would bring Japanese students to Millfield. Cultural exchange, Hiroshi had learned, happened not in boardrooms, but around dinner tables, not through corporate programs, but through shared stories over coffee. Kesha approached, carrying a leather folder. "The final applications came in today. We have 37 students applying for the first scholarship." She switched to Japanese, a language she now spoke daily, as she helped coordinate the cultural programs. "Your daughter would be proud of what her kindness inspired." Hiroshi nodded, accepting the folder. Through the window, he could see the small garden that the town had planted in Yuki's memory, where cherry blossom trees would bloom each spring as a reminder that beauty could grow from loss. His phone buzzed with messages from Tokyo, but they no longer felt urgent. His company ran efficiently under his capable lieutenants, and his monthly trips back to Japan felt more like visits than returns home. "Mr. Tanaka," said Jimmy, one of the factory workers, approaching hesitantly. "My daughter Jenny. She's been studying Japanese really hard since you started the language classes at the school. She wanted to say something to you." A shy 10-year-old stepped forward, bowed formally, and spoke in careful Japanese. "Futachi no tingo yorime sukuste kurete arigatou gozaimasu. Watashitachi no maki o yori atsukushiku shite kurite arigato gozaimasu." "Thank you for making our town more beautiful." Hiroshi knelt down to her level, remembering how Yuki had always insisted he do the same when speaking to children. "No," he replied in English, wanting everyone to understand. "Thank you for showing me that home isn't where you come from. Home is where people remember your name, where they save your favorite pie, where they care about your stories." He looked around the bustling diner, at Patricia refilling coffee cups, at Jake teaching a customer how to fold napkins the origami way, at Kesha switching effortlessly between languages as she welcomed new visitors. "My daughter found her way home here," he continued, his voice steady with peace rather than grief. "And now, so have I." As the lunch rush began, Hiroshi took his usual seat at the corner booth, not as an outsider, but as part of the family. The walls around him hummed with conversations in English, Spanish, and increasingly Japanese, as the community embraced the cultural richness that Yuki's memory had inspired. He opened the scholarship applications, ready to help another young person discover that the world was smaller and kinder than they'd ever imagined. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected connection and community kindness, please remember to like this video, share your own thoughts about finding family in unexpected places in the comments below, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovering that home isn't a place, but the people who choose to love you.